Men don't live to 6, 7, 8, 900 years today like they did back in the pre-flood days, because our God-given filtration system that surrounded this globe, it fell through due to man's sin. Have you ever heard of the hyperbolic chamber? Have you ever had a loved one? Have you ever had a loved one go to and have treatments in a hyperbolic chamber? Doctors use hyperbolic chambers today to speed healing. What a coincidence. They reproduce the pre-flood days and it helps to speed healing. My first encounter with the hyperbolic chamber came some 20 years ago when I saw a television program where scientists were talking about how they were taking these hyperbolic chambers and they were putting creatures inside the hyperbolic chamber atmosphere, and they were getting some amazing results. 20 years ago when I saw this, they were experimenting with all things. They were experimenting with fruit flies. They were taking fruit flies and allowing them to exist in the pre-flood atmosphere, in the hyperbolic chamber atmosphere. A fruit fly's normal lifespan is from 40 to 50 days, and 20 years ago when they were experimenting, they were able to get these fruit flies to double their lifespan. They were able to live from 80 to 100 days. Isn't that a coincidence that they live twice as long in that environment that has been duplicated from the pre-flood days? Now, I went on the internet because I wanted to make sure that my information was correct, that it wasn't just some urban legend, or I misrepresented or misremembered what it was that I had seen 20 years ago. And lo and behold, these scientists are still, they were experimenting with them 20 years ago, they're still experimenting today. They're experimenting with those fruit flies even today, and they've tweaked the atmospheric conditions and the magnetic conditions in such a way that the fruit flies are not only living twice as long as their normal lifespan, but now these fruit flies that exist in the hyperbolic chamber, they can live to 3 times their normal lifespan. From 40 to 50 days, now they're living from 120 to 150 days, and listen to this, they live that way to the 3rd generation. What that means is they can take a pair of fruit flies, a male and a female fruit fly, out of the hyperbolic chamber environment and bring it out here in our normal environment. They will have offspring, and their offspring who have never existed in the hyperbolic chamber environment, they live 3 times as long as their normal lifespan. That offspring will have offspring, and that offspring will live 3 times as long as their normal lifespan. And that group of offspring will have offspring, and the 3rd generation of offspring will live 3 times as long. They'll live, instead of 40 to 50, they'll live 120 to 150 days, because their great-grandparents had spent time in the hyperbolic chamber. I'm sorry, I'm going to move into preaching. There's a sermon in that. Honey, if you dwell in the presence of God, your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren can be blessed if you spend time in the presence of God. Didn't mean to get off subject, but there's a sermon in that. Maybe we'll do that some other time. But you spend time in the presence of God, and you'll be blessed for generations to come if the Lord should tarry. Let me get back on topic here. These fruit flies, now I didn't study the website enough because I just simply don't have time. I want to study this thing and not study fruit flies. I didn't study it enough to see what happens after the 4th or 5th generation. I don't know if they immediately go back to their normal lifespan, or if they begin to diminish like it did back after the flood, where people live shorter and shorter until it gets down to where we only live 70, 80, some people to 110, 115 nowadays, but it diminished down to our lifespan. Now, I don't know. I didn't study that enough.